All right, everybody. So, as you know, I'd like to start every interview with the same question, and even the founders of the Skimm will not escape me. The question is this for Danielle: what's a formative decision you've had to make to get to where you are today?
Um, the the biggest, well, I would say the most impactful formative decision to get where we are today was the decision to quit our jobs when we were 25 and 26 years old. And in preparing for this podcast, we knew we were going to get asked that. And I think, you know, what surprises people is 11 years into running a company that we started, thinking about that moment of quitting our jobs still makes me want to throw up. I
Mm.
think it was still the uh, one of the hardest things that I've done. And I think there's a lot in that. We had grown up news geeks, Carly and I. We loved being in the news business. And it's a hard business to get into. You have to do all of the quote unquote right things. You've got to work hard in school, go to a school that allows you to kind of get the foot in the door for an internship, work really hard at that internship. I worked in breaking news, so it was crazy hours. Um, and you get there, and Carly and I both experienced this as being products of graduating college and in like the Great Recession. So we graduated in 2008, which was like this weird thing that if you were in these more like traditional paths, right, like banking or law, a lot of our friends that were doing that got laid off very quickly. The great thing about being in media, especially when there's a downturn, is that you don't get paid a lot, period. So you're very cheap labor.
Not a lot to lose.
Yeah, not a lot to lose. Like no benefits, very cheap labor. And we were very much, eager to learn. And so in 2008, between 2008 and 2012, when we were working for NBC News, we soaked up everything that we could. And what happened was we got to go really far, really fast in terms of exposure, in terms of experiences, in terms of building a network. And that was fantastic. I think it is, I credit that experience with giving me professionalism, giving me the tools that I needed to understand my trade as journalists, and also I think exposure to the challenges in the industry. And that's really, what we saw. So we were roommates in a very small apartment in New York, and we would come home to each other every day. And I think as roommates who were working, for the same company in different parts of news, we would see the same things, which was an industry that was being forced to change because of digital trends, and also an industry that really tended to attract older people and older viewers. And so here we were, like being very out of place, being 20 somethings who were obsessed with news, loved kind of like this old school vibe of starting your day, reading a paper, watching 60 Minutes, watching Meet the Press, and realizing that our friends didn't do that. And it wasn't because they weren't interested. It wasn't because they didn't care. It was because I think all of us, it's quaint when we think about it that we thought like 2012 was kind of like the heyday of so much information. You get up and your feed is overloaded. And now that seems like it was like cute that we thought that. But we felt like what was missing was a focus on our demographic that we are part of, which is women who are leading in so many different ways. They've stepped into even more power than when we started 11 years ago, and they didn't have a source of information that they trusted or that fit into their routines. And we were like, well, they're an advertiser's dream. They're controlling householding, purchasing decisions and spending decisions. And there's nothing out there. Like that just doesn't make sense. So I think we saw the void in the market. We saw an opportunity. We had enough of the right training, and I think we were at the perfect age. And I say that because I don't think there's ever a right time to start something. I say it because we didn't know how hard it would be. And I think when you're in your mid 20s, you kind of have that mix of like bravado and naivete to be like, well, it'll be hard, but I'll take it on. I can do it. Um, and we also only had to take care of ourselves. We didn't have families. We needed to pay our rent. We needed to, sustain ourselves. But it was, I think we knew there would never be a time where it got easier. So the most formative decision that we made to get us here today was quitting our jobs that we had worked so hard to get and taking this huge leap to start something from our living room couch.
Yeah, and you kind of had that sweet spot because as I think about, the entrepreneurial journey, you had experience that was relevant, which by the way, everybody, people poo-poo that a little bit, but it's like you've worked in a place where excellence is demanded and you know what that looks like. You had a business partner, which is huge, and you knew that you could spend crazy amounts of time together without
It's really about me. Thank you for bringing that up.
And we'll get to
I was
you
going to say, like,
thank you.
Well,
Thank you so much.
I mean, I see the smile on your face. And then you have this big opportunity, and then you have the kind of like the sunk sort of the trade off that one has to make, or the opportunity cost it's affordable at that point in your life, and so it's a great point in which to do something. Now, Carly, I have spent my summer, I will admit this, rewatching The Newsroom. That show, which by the way, everybody, and it's crazy. I've been posting about it. Like Allison Pill has been looking at my Instagram stories, which I'm feeling really good about. Maggie Jordan.
Sure.
Yeah.
Season 2 had that unfortunate haircut, but she came back in season 3 with better hair.
I don't know if I got past season 2, but
I don't think I got past season 2 either.
Project Genoa. It's a morass. There's a lot of people probably didn't make it through.
But when they were doing research for it before the show, they were actually following people that we worked with.
Yeah. Well, I believe it because, to your point, the show totally is. It's the hero of the show are the older people who are both white, whose world vision is being imposed upon, and which, by the way, like that's the way the news was. You see this opportunity, you come in with a whole different voice. You're addressing women, millennial women. That was 2012, 2013, back when that show was made, right? So now, like 10 years later, the world is completely different. And like, I'm curious, like, how have you evolved your model to meet the needs? Because you have the interesting dynamic. I was thinking about this morning. It's like you have your existing customer, the one who started with you, who is aged and is in a different place in her life.
Yep.
But then you also like have a totally new generation who's totally different. Like, how do you even address them, or you just stick to your core? I'm sure you do. Like, how's it all played on, Carly, since you guys launched this business, at the inception?
That's a great question. So I think in a few ways. I think one, quite honestly, like and I say we, like Danielle and I, like we and the company have grown up with that initial audience. We entered life stages with her. We're entering life stages with her. So very organically, a lot of what the Skimm has taken on speaks, once again to kind of how we started, like knowing what our friends needed and knowing that we could fix it. And so it's why we expanded into personal finance. It's why we expanded into health. It's why we're taking on more and more around your family and purchasing decisions, because the things that are on our minds have changed and continue to evolve and will continue to do so. So we're very proud of the fact that like we have grown up with this audience. We also get asked a lot, why this audience? My husband reads the Skimm, or my older sister reads the Skimm, or my younger sister reads the Skimm, and why not them? And we always like laugh because we're like, this should be the question actually for every single business out there today. This has nothing to do with the Skimm. this demographic of women, of millennial women, are the single most important demographic to our economy. She is earning the paycheck. She controls 95% of all household spending. She's influencing over $3.7 trillion annually. Like, she is the most important customer anyone could be reaching, no matter what they do. So, from a business sense, that is why we have followed her. But to your point, there is a new generation, and when we, when we graduated college, like the thing that you got or did to feel like an adult at the time was you got like a subscription to the Journal or to the Times or whatever it was, and today, obviously, like, it's not the same thing, same routine. And what we routinely hear is that the Skimm is like the must have, must stop for when you enter into kind of that adulthood phase. And that is, so wonderful for us to hear, and incredibly gratifying, but also I think really speaks to, like, we help this generation of women make decisions in her life. And as you age into what those decisions might be, like, the Skimm is for you. And that's really exciting to have a new generation with us.
How do you make sure? I mean, the thing that you see is you founders who start a company, they know the customer because they are the customer. And then 10 years later, it's not like you want to become irrelevant or not know how to talk to new customers, but you live in your world and you are your person. How do you keep yourself from becoming like, I hate to, a dinosaur, as it were, because I notice this with a lot of people I know. You live in a community with certain people, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden your worldview is shaped by the context you have and the media you consume. And even though you're not trying to, you just sort of lose connection. And then organizations make policies or do things that like alienate the other folks that could be potential customers. So like, how do you avoid that?
I don't think there's an easy answer. I think it's a few different things. The first is, one of the biggest things that we did when we started the company was make the decision that, the Skimm's voice, which is a huge driver to our audience and our stickiness, was not Carly's voice. It was my voice. It was, a persona, a brand ethos that we created together. And that brand has evolved over time. And it's really important that we continue to bring people in who add and evolve that voice. And I think that took a lot of maturity on our part. I think our view on it really changed. I think in the beginning it was like scary, and now it's a necessity to have people who are coming in to drive change, to make sure that there is relevancy and resonance with audiences. And part of that is how we sound, and the other part is what we talk about. And I think what we talk about has definitely evolved and aged accordingly as the pressures that our audience faces has grown. And I think that's where Carly and I stay with the like key consumer that we started with. Like, that is where we are. We are kind of like mapping that journey. But the voice needs to make sure that we're reaching a wider part of our addressable target audience. The other thing I would say is, it was funny. One of our early investors is someone who, Alan Patrikoff, at Greycroft. And I think Carly and I talk a lot about, he's definitely wiser and older. And he is also a frequent first adopter of trying things that are out there, of being the first to call someone and say, like, have you heard about this? What do you think? And Carly and I often talk about how important that is, where when we feel ourselves like being stuck or like rolling our eyes at something and being like, can you believe there's another platform out there? That is not really the way that you grow as entrepreneurs. And so I think we've had role models who, the reason why they've created such like venerable reputations and careers is because they are the ones to always have this hunger and curiosity about new things, instead of kind of shying away from it and staying in place.
I love that you mentioned Alan Patrikoff.
Yeah.
Because the cool thing for folks who don't know him, you can look him up. He's 88 years old. You can still see him at all the tech events, speaking on panels. He's like on top of all the. I mean, he probably is like coding his own Gen AI bot right now.
Well, not only that, like he ran the New York City Marathon last year. I just had breakfast with him, and he was like, "I'm not going to go to Burning Man this year, I think."
Wow.
And I was like, "Same, yes."
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's all, I totally agree with what Danielle just said. It's, he keeps himself young. He keeps himself kind of where the pulse of things are.
I love it. We all should be a little bit more like Alan. Now, I was on your Instagram this morning, which everybody should go check out at the Skimm. And you're talking on your Instagram about the Skimm's childcare benefits and sort of how you provide relevant benefits for the folks that work for your organization. And I have to imagine, based on my research, that it has some relation to a new campaign that you're running, which is called Show Us Your Childcare. And so, Carly, talk about that campaign and what are you driving at with that, and how the Skimm is living up to the campaign itself.
Well, you imagined correctly.
So smart.
You're so smart. You should have a podcast.
Oh.
So we do have a campaign called Show Us Your Childcare, and we're doing that in partnership with Moms First. But Show Us Your Childcare actually is kind of our second campaign of awareness that we actually started with Show Us Your Leave, which was really around, again, when we talk about growing with our audience and seeing where she is and meeting her where she is. Show Us Your Leave was actually born out of the fact that our audience was having kids, and both political parties and Washington has simply just failed our country in providing the support needed for families in the workplace. And so, very organically, when the Build Back Better bill, can't say that, Build Back Better bill, basically was going to, once again, not really provide this country with what women in particular need. We posted organically, Show Us Your Leave, show us what it looks like. We were overwhelmed by pictures and stories that honestly, I can't do them justice to even try to explain, but really the reality and the state of what the lack of paid family childcare looks like in this country. And it was everything from NICU nurses going back to work 10 days after giving birth themselves, to literally women in labor on a contract, like hooked up to a contraction monitor, but trying to get emails in by midnight so that they'll qualify for leave. So just these horrific stories that we then were like, okay, we can't just kind of wallow in the depressing facts of this. How do we turn this into action? And so we created Show Us Your Leave to actually be a database where we invited companies to say, here's our leave policy very transparently. And that all lives on our website at theskimm.com/showusyourleave. Over 600 companies, all of whom you have heard of, now publicize what their benefits look like, and in many cases change them. So this then evolved into, okay, you have the child, you bring that child home, however you started your family, but then you're going to go back to work. And what does your childcare support look like? And we know that this country, again, has failed families in providing childcare support. And I'll go back to what is the most important demographic to this economy. It is this generation of women. We cannot afford for her not to stay in the workforce. We cannot afford to have a declining birth rate, which we're starting to, because she is trying to make a choice. And so Show Us Your Childcare took the same ethos of how do we create a database and the tools for companies to share what their childcare policies are, and for employees to say, here's the tools I need to actually have the conversation with my boss to rally for childcare.
So what are your policies, by the way? I mean, let's put it out there.
So we have a few. And I think, one is that we constantly are evolving our policies. We've evolved them a lot through these campaigns by learning what other people are doing. So, I think there's a few ways that we've really worked to support our employees. In particular, we got rid of maternity leave versus paternity leave. It's paid family leave. It's 18 weeks, no matter whether you're the quote unquote primary parent caregiver or not. We don't use that terminology anymore. We have unlimited vacation days at the Skimm. We've evolved a lot of our benefits, healthcare benefits, to ensure that we have good coverage for all of these. And for childcare, we actually work with an amazing company called Vivi, which offers incredible childcare benefits and support. And it's just one of many ways that we really try to create a workplace that, our workplace is 85%, over 85% women who are in their childbearing years and have families. And it's how we've been able to grow with them. And so we say all of this because this is the reality of what the workforce today looks like. And when we talk about everybody has to go back to work 5 days a week, and we talk about, also then supporting women and women of color and diversified leadership, like your policies have to match that. And this is an example of where we all need to band together to do so. And, talking to you today, end of August, we are a little over a month away from was really a very scary cliff that our country is facing that's not really getting talked about, which is that a third of the benefits that were offered to families during, as a result of the pandemic in terms of childcare support are about to expire. And we're not talking about this. And what that means is you're going to have families, predominantly women, who are going to have to make the choice of, well, how am I going to pay for childcare? Maybe I'm going to have to stay home. And we cannot afford to have this as a country.
Have you been able to look at, for example, we had a guest on the show, Zeynep Ton, who's a professor at MIT. I don't know if you've come across her work.
No.
She runs the Good Jobs Institute, and she's a operations professor. So she's, she was actually my professor back in business school, and she's very hard. I was not a good student in that class. It's a lot of details. But anyway, what she has found is that there's this conventional wisdom that, cutting costs and firing people and lower wages makes companies more profitable. But of course, when you look into it, if you offer people a better wage, they do better. There's less turnover. The company's more profitable. So there is this conventional thinking that is very pernicious, that somehow we have to not offer people basic things they need in their lives, and that somehow that's not the realm of business. But what I'm hearing here, and I'd love your thoughts on this, Danielle, is when you look at these policies, you're not just being nice. I mean, you're doing the right thing. And there is an element of serving your stakeholders that we should all acknowledge, but it's also sensible business policy, is it not?
Yeah. So there's, we say a lot, Carly and I personally believe that everyone should have a desire to back women because we're all good people, and, all of the things that go into being an empathetic and caring society that wants to help each other. But I don't actually need people to believe that. That would be great if they just wanted to focus on how to build better businesses. It all comes back to the same thing. You know that women make excellent managers. They create more efficient businesses. They drive better results over the long term. And we also know at the same time that we need nice things like Social Security. We need nice things like having enough people in the workforce to be able to satisfy all the things that we want to need as a society. And to do that, you need to make sure that people can actually show up and come to work. And that is where childcare becomes a necessity. I also think that more and more as we talk about how to the role of, and when I say, as we talk about, I think in the political sphere, there's, so much division in every single way. And because of that, I don't think that it's worth talking about Republicans think this and Democrats think that. I think that's very quaint.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like there is a lot of discussion about the role of government. And that discussion can and will play out for a very long time. In the meantime, if we are not getting these policies through government, which again, like you can debate, but whether or not that's the right decision, we're not getting them. So I think that there is then a default for the private sector to create it for ourselves, because we need things like family leave to get people in the workforce. We need things like affordable childcare to be able to sustain the type of workforce that we need. So again, it all goes back to as the society that I hope that we have one day. Of course, I want people to care and look at this as, you know, a way to just support each other, but we don't actually need that. The economic argument stands alone.
All right, you guys want to try something new with me today?
Yeah.
You've inspired me. I'm just sitting here and I'm like, oh, can I have them on I've been enjoying this so much.
Yeah.
And so you've inspired me to try something new, which may become regular, which is a little lightning round to end the interview.
We love a lightning round.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've never done this
You
before.
should call it the Carly Danielle round.
The Carly Danielle round?
Yeah.
The Skimm round? If I do the Skimm TM round, do I have to pay you royalties? That's the question.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
then
what
if it's just one M? All right. So it's going to be 3 questions. The first will be an open-ended, but, you know, brevity is always appreciated. Just because it's lightning round, so, you know, lightning must be. And it's the second, the second and the third are going to be a yes, no. Are we ready to go?
Ready.
All right. We'll start. Who wants to go first, actually?
I'll go first.
Okay. We'll do we'll do Carly and Danielle each one. Okay.
Got it.
Here we go. Ready. First question. Your most impactful advice on entrepreneurship.
Oh, damn. I shouldn't have gone first.
I'm sorry. I know. It's hard.
I think be really, I mean, it sounds cliche, but be so comfortable and almost immune to the word no. The more immune you are to the word no, the better off you're going to be.
All right. Danielle?
It's similar. My mom would tell me all the time growing up, the worst thing someone can say is no. And like, that's really not that bad. And I think that is true. You're going to hear it. If you are at all going to be successful, you're going to hear the word no to the point where it loses meaning. Okay.
Number 2, we jump in the space machine or the time machine. We're 5 years into the future. Yes, no question. Will Gen AI have radically disrupted your business model?
Yes.
Okay. And number 3, you are co-CEOs of your company. Do you think that this is a solution or an arrangement that most companies could successfully pull off?
No.
I love it. So good. All right.
But I feel like there's a lot more I want to say on that one. You're going to have
Okay, well, do you want to unpack that? Because it is a spicy way to end the combo.
Yeah, because I don't want to give the wrong impression.
No.
The reason why we don't want to give the wrong impression is I think we are very, very focused on making sure that we are creating and adding to basically being visible as women who are executives and CEOs and founders, and also women who have had families. And I don't want being co-CEOs to look at as a solution on family leave, which I think we have heard, which I think is ridiculous and not sustainable. So I want to shoot that down. Carly, you want to talk about the other parts of it?
The other part is that we actually really like each other.
Yeah.
No, but I think we get asked all the time, like, you know, I want to start a business with my friend. And I'm like, not a good idea. Like, if you look at every example out there, it never ends well. For whatever reason, and for a lot of work, like, it really works for us. And we know we have like a magic to how we work together and how we've created this company. But it's not something that I think is easily replicable. And I think we're really aware of that. And so while it really works for us and it really works for the Skimm, and I think we're the exception to many rules, I think it is really hard to replicate. And, you know, our best advice is like what a lawyer once said to us in 2012 before we started: sit down, have a bottle of wine together, and talk about every horrible thing you think could happen between the two of you. And we did. And here we are.
Yeah, have the convo when the stakes are low.
Yes.
It's like if Eduardo and Mark had the convo about
Yes.
their ownership before, but like then all the Mark's like wiping out Eduardo and it was nasty.
I mean, then we wouldn't even have a good movie. We wouldn't even have the Winklevi had they all
I was
talked.
going to say yeah.
No.
Well, there'd be some other things.
They'd just be anonymous crypto dudes or
anonymous
whatever.
crypto twins. We would just be like, who are those crypto twins?
All right. So if you want to learn more about the Skimm, you go to theskimm.com. You can learn more about and follow Carly and Danielle at Carly and Danielle, and you can listen to them on their podcast, which is excellent, 9 to 5-ish. Carly Zakin and Danielle Weisberg, co-founders and co-CEOs of the Skimm. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.